Goeiedag, good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world.
I've been looking around for salvation. I've been looking around for the truth. All around me I see frustration, and I looked all over till I found you. I sit and listen to your stories, and you're telling me, please don't worry. Lot in this world you should know, and love in life is where you should go. If you're looking for somewhere to go, if you're looking for someone to know, if you're looking for someone to guide you, then love in life will guide you. I know that life outside is so hard.
Goeienaand, good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world, and welcome to tonight's live stream. And tonight we're going to be having a very interesting discussion, but I'll get to that in a second, because I do want to alert you to the fact that tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Johannesburg time, we're going to blow the lid off the Twin Towers and 9/11 cover-up. It's a quite extraordinary discussion. The fellow who's joining me, Andre, has been studying this for 20 years. And he's got some video footage that we're going to be putting up that is from 9/11 that's going to make or get your attention. Let me put it that way. And not only that, we'll have 2 PDFs that will be available on the Loving Life TV forum after the live stream. They'll be linked below in the description of that particular live stream on Loving Life TV. And of course, if you get the daily email, you will get those links. Now, talking about the daily email, I just want to do a little survey. We're sorting out our new site. The daily email apparently is getting to a lot more people. But if you are not getting the daily email, please put 2 in the side chat. If you are getting the daily email, please put 1 in the side chat. Let's have a look and see how many people are getting it and how many people aren't. Alrighty, while you're doing that, I'm going to get my guest on. Of course, my guest is Billy, and that's Billy Kraft is his name, and he's got a very, very interesting life, or had a very, very interesting life. So let's get Billy on. Here we go. Hi, Billy. All right, guys. I spoke to Billy a few minutes ago. Let me just see what's going on here. All right. While we're just waiting for Billy, I'm just looking at the results of the email. I see we got a few who didn't get it, but most people did. Guys, if you don't get the daily email, and I do apologize, it's only 77% sent so far. We're getting a huge number of people joining Lovey Live TV. Please go to the homepage and take the link daily email. Here we go. Hi, Billy. Hi, Billy.
Hi, Scott.
How are you, buddy?
I'm fine, yourself.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Now, Billy, we had a little chat about 20 minutes ago, and I found your personal history fascinating. What I'd like to do with this live stream before we get into the discussion about survival in South Africa is tell us a little bit about your military background and growing up in South Africa.
Okay, let's start with growing up. I was born in 1974, so for most of what was left of the apartheid era up until 1990, with the referendum, which I was too young to vote in, and 1994, I was still basically at school, and in 1993, I was called up for national service. I was part of the last compulsory national service intake, just to put that in the perspective of what was happening. But yeah, growing up in South Africa, I cannot say that I had a typical upbringing. Yeah, I was for the most part of my young life, didn't know who my father was. Came from hectic circumstances, which I'm not going to go into too much detail there. And then my mom married again, and actually my stepdad adopted me and gave me his name. I only found all this out by the age I was about 16 years old. So yeah, but living in South Africa as a child, pre-1994, if you want to call it that, I was the child of a policeman. He started off as railway police, and I think around about 85, 86, they amalgamated with the South African police. And then from there on, he was a South African police service member until he was medically boarded around about 1992, I believe. Yeah.
So with your military background, I mean, you progressed pretty high up through the ranks, didn't you?
Yes, I resigned. I had the rank of a lieutenant colonel when I resigned about a year ago.
Wow, okay. And now you actually have a business in, I think, the Kimberley area.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. All right. Now, let's get on to the subject tonight, which is really surviving in South Africa in 2023. I mean, things in South Africa are not good.
No, they're not.
Yeah. All right. Now, look, I guess let's start at the very beginning. And when it comes to personal security awareness, what should people in South Africa be doing?
I'm going to be blunt. I say first thing they need to do is get their heads out of the sand. A lot of people are still living in this blissful little bubble, if I can call it that, thinking it's not going to happen to me. It happens to people in the news. It doesn't happen to me. And you can see it by the way they conduct themselves daily. They've got no awareness of their personal safety and security. The way they move around town, and then when something do happen or does happen, they're very, how can you say it? They're very surprised. So yeah, the first step is to get your head out of the sand and realize that we are living in an area or in a country where crime is rife. I think we are up to 70 murders a day in South Africa, the latest stats that I saw. So it's not if it's going to happen to you, it's a matter of when it is going to happen to me or somebody close to me. And what can I do to either mitigate that risk, or when it does happen, to minimize the effect that it will have on me and my family. I think that is where we need to go. Whether it be a farm attack, whether it be home invasion, whether it be you're caught up in an armed robbery somewhere in town, or a victim of a robbery yourself while moving around in town. And then obviously another thing that goes to my heart is kidnapping of children for the child trafficking business. Uh, that's also something that people is blissfully unaware of.
Yeah. Have you heard of people in your circles who've had children kidnapped?
Not people that I personally know, but I know of. Every now and again, even in this little town of ours, you hear stories, and there's incidents of um, child trafficking rings and whatever that has been operating, even in our malls. So it's there. The risk is there. It's maybe not as prevalent as in some of the bigger centres, but it is here. And that's also maybe this is Kimberley. It's not Joburg or Cape Town or Pretoria. So people still have that rural feel, platteland um, feel in town, but yeah, it is actually far from it.
Now you almost have to wear or put a leash on your children around their necks, like just like when you take a dog to the shopping centre, just to make sure that nobody can steal them. I mean, it's really becoming bad, isn't it?
Yeah, and I've seen people do that. I think mostly it's just to prevent the kids from running amok. But yeah, I've seen people do that in even in Kimberley in our malls, that they do have little leashes on the belts or on the wrists of the kids, just to make sure that they don't get lost. And yeah.
Yeah. Right. Now, moving on from there, what is your advice on safeguarding your premises? Let's say, for example, I'm in a gated community. Let's start with a gated community because they appear to be the safest, but I think in some ways they have some very, very big risks because you are in a gated community.
Absolutely, and I think it gives people being in a gated community gives you a false sense of safety and security. Um, I mean, if you listen and read the stories about uh, people that live in gated communities that have been the victims of robberies or home invasions, etc., is that most of the time it was either the guards involved or, I mean, people have gardening services, people have cleaning services nowadays, people that come in and clean your house, all types of services, contractors like myself. I get given daily remote controls to enter into gates or passwords to enter into places to make it convenient for the client, which puts a lot of responsibility on me to keep it safe. But I mean, you don't know. They have not vetted the background of whichever contractor that comes into those gated communities to come and do work. And you don't know what they are up to when they are there. I don't know what my workers are up to when I am working there. I had an incident just the other day where one of the guys who was working on one of my teams was caught about 2 weeks later breaking into the premises that we were working at.
Wow.
Um, thank good, yeah, thank goodness the security company and the panic alarm system worked, and the security company reacted quickly. The neighborhood watch reacted quickly, and the dog unit of the SA police reacted quickly. So now this member is sitting in prison with a few more breathing holes than he was born with, thanks to the canine unit. But yeah, but that's the good side of the story, or the positive side of the story. Sometimes they do not get caught.
Yeah.
Um,
So what's your advice to people who are in a gated community? We'll move to residential shortly,
yeah.
but what should they do and what shouldn't they do?
Oh, treat your home, even if it's inside a gated community, as if it is a freestanding property. Because that guard at the gate, um, usually it's just one guard there. Um, and don't think those security guards have the best type of training. They go through their basic security guard grades, training, etc. Sometimes they're not even armed. So if somebody, a resident of the community comes in, closely followed by somebody else that has ulterior motives and they overpower the guard, then they've got access. Or they, like what happens often, the security guard comes from the informal community or the informal settlement in that area. So the crooks that wants to come and break in and steal and or whatever they want to come and do, they know this person. They know his family, so it's easy to threaten those guys. It's easy to bribe them. So yes, treat your property which is in a gated community as if it is a freestanding community. Don't assume that you are safe just because there's high walls, there's electric fence, and there's a guard at the gate.
Now, some of these gated communities have like a commando or a group of people who get together in the event that there is an attack on their community. What's your advice to people who live in a gated community who, A, are part of that commando, or B, are not part of that commando? What's your advice to both areas?
You're talking about commando now. It's like a neighborhood watch reaction force, something
exactly.
like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, get involved. By all means, get involved. There's safety in numbers. If your neighbor next door is having an incident and you can react within a minute, why must you wait for 3 or 5 minutes for somebody that's further away to react to that incident? So yes, get involved, because tomorrow it can be you. If you cannot get physically involved, you don't have any skills or training or whatever to get physically involved, get involved in some other manner, non-active or passive manner, where either you keep an eye out or you are able to call for assistance or just some financial support to these. I mean, if you refer now quickly to neighborhood watches, it's normally people that take their own time, their own vehicles. And it's got a financial strain on those guys that do this type of service or perform this type of service for their community. Support them in whichever way it's possible for you to, if you cannot actively support them and go out on patrols with them or react when there's an incident. But get involved. It's good for your own sake and it's good for your neighbor's sake.
Well, what I've heard is that these gangs who go in and break in, we'll get to farms in a second, but these gangs who break into houses and stuff like that, they're all cowards. If something goes wrong, they're going to head for the hills as quickly as they can. They don't stick around and fight back. They just basically, do a runner, don't they?
Yes, there are instances where the opposite is also true, but most of the time these guys are there for financial gain, or they know there's firearms on the premises, so they want to get their hands on the firearms to go and commit further crimes with those firearms. But most of the time when they go there, and I mean, if you read the newspapers and the stories about that victims of attacks share, they want electronics, they want cash, they want jewelry, phones, cars, and firearms. That's the stuff that they come for. So they want to get stuff that they can quickly grab and get out. They don't want to spend time there, because the longer they spend on the scene, the bigger the chance of being captured or being cornered. So they want to go in without much of a fuss, get what they came for, and get out. So the moment you start fighting back or shooting back, or they get cornered, or they see they're going to get overpowered because there's a heck of a gathering or a reaction from the community now, then they're going to hit the road now. They're not going to hang around.
Yeah. Now, just talking about fighting back and shooting back, what is the legal position when it comes to protecting yourself and your family? I heard in South Africa now, you're not even allowed to lay a hand on someone who's broken into your house, or you might be arrested for assault, which sounds to me absolutely crazy. What is the position there?
Look, yeah, there's lots of stories and people misinterpret the law. I'm not a legal expert, um, but yes, you are still, according to the South African law, um, entitled to defend yourself, your property, or the property of another person. Um, Obviously, that by which means necessary, but there's always that thing of minimum force. So if he comes at you with a brick, you hit him with a baseball bat, for example, or a cricket bat or something. You must always be the response must be measured to the threat.
But
But
that,
now, if you're an 80-year-old lady and there's four guys in your house with knives and pangas and
yeah,
crowbars and whatever, how are you going to defend yourself? You want to stop the attack or the threat immediately.
yeah,
And if you have a firearm in that situation and you use the firearm to protect yourself, I can't see how. Yes, they're probably going to book the lady and take her to the jail and open a case of murder or what have you. But I think at the end of the day, when sanity prevails and that case comes before a judge and the facts are before a judge, the case will be dismissed or the member will be found not guilty based on self-defense.
yeah, yeah.
So
Okay,
yeah, but I'm not a lawyer. I'm not
yeah.
going to. Please don't take my word for that. Go and read. I mean, if
Well,
I'm a world-class heavyweight boxer and I beat the guy with my fists and he dies, um, am I still? I mean, I can be held liable for murder or culpable homicide or whatever because I've been trained to use my hands to fight.
yeah, but
So yeah, the situation is different for every person.
I think that if someone's broken into your house, um, I mean, it makes common sense that you have the ability to defend yourself and your house. And this minimum force thing to me really doesn't make any sense at all because if they come in there, as you say, with a brick, to basically hit you with a brick, and all you've got is a gun, um, you're not going to be looking around for a baseball bat so that you're kind of, you're playing the same
Yeah,
sport. You're going to just fire off your gun and hit the guy. Yeah, so
exactly.
it's a crazy part of the whole thing. But let's get back to no, sorry, to safeguarding your premises. If you live in a house that's just in a normal suburban street, what are the key things you should do and you shouldn't do in that environment, as opposed to being in a gated estate?
Oh, look, obviously the electric fencing, alarm systems, security beams around your house, dogs, anything that you can keep your doors and gates locked. Have burglar proofing in front of the windows and the doors. Um, those are the basic things. But most of those things, or all of those things, are just temporary. They um, what do they call it? They're obstacles. And an obstacle can be crossed if you have enough time and you've got the resources. An obstacle can be overcome. So at most it slows them down, but it will not stop or deter them from coming in if they want to. That's assuming now that they haven't had any inside information, they haven't gotten any passwords or codes or spare keys or stuff like that. But usually when these guys get caught, they came prepared to break open security doors, to bridge electric fences for that matter, and slide underneath them, or to cut wires or fences where it needs to be cut. I mean, it's been long going that even a brick wall only keeps them out for so long. That I've heard stories where the guys are physically broken through the brick wall. It took
Wow,
their time to sit and break through a brick wall.
wow.
So yeah, I've heard stories where people where you've got the tiled roof on your house where they get onto the roof and they lift up the tiles and they go into the roof space of the house, and from there on get into the trapdoor or get out the trapdoor and they're inside your house without even having triggered an outside alarm or a
No,
door alarm
no,
or a window alarm. Yeah.
you raise a really, really important point, because my understanding is that the easiest type of access into a house is through the roof. You just move a
Yeah,
few tiles and you're in the roof, and then you go through the cavity and bang, you're in the house.
correct. So in order to avoid that, you'll have to have some sort of an alarm system or an early warning system to make an alarm before these guys even reach your house. They might have come over the fence
Yeah,
without making an alarm, but now as they approach your house, before they can even get up the roof or get close to a window or a door, you've got maybe the security beams that can make alarm. Uh, yeah. So
right.
and that can even act as a deterrent
No,
because they know, okay, the alarm's gone off. They've got 3 or 5 minutes before the armed reaction or whoever uh, rocks up there and spoils their plans.
no,
Or the alarm has woken up the occupants of the house now.
yeah. No, I've always said you're absolutely crazy if you live in South Africa, and especially if you live in a suburban house or an acreage or something like that. You're crazy if you're not a member of some kind of a self-defense group, because that. What are your views on that?
Look, anything that you can do to protect yourself and your family is a good thing. So if you're part if you I don't know if you what you exactly refer to when you say self defense group. Um, we call them. We've got neighborhood watches. We've
Yeah,
got
neighborhood
the
watches and
private
things like
security.
that.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's pertinent that you become involved, even if there is no formal neighborhood watch. At least have your neighbors, your immediate neighbors' phone numbers, and regularly chat to each other. Um, Warn each other of what's going on outside. Be aware of your surroundings. If there's yeah, irregular movement in the streets, yeah, give the neighbor a ring or on the WhatsApp group or whatever that you have for the neighborhood or the street that you live in. Just say, hey, we've picked up these guys now. They don't belong here. I haven't seen them in the street before. Just keep an eye out for them.
Yeah,
Or strange vehicle that's moving suspiciously slowly through looking at the houses. No, normally there are those signs.
yeah. The thing
So
that
yeah,
struck
if
me,
they
the thing that struck me about the riots in July 2021 in Durban was that the suburb of Phoenix, which is an Indian suburb, the community there were prepared. And when the rioters came into their suburb, my God, did they see their ass? I think 35 of them were shot dead in that suburb in a matter of minutes, and of course they just fled. Now, as a result of that, this is how crazy things are in South Africa. No one asked the rioters to come into Phoenix. They'd already looted half of Durban. Of course, you want to defend yourself, but then you had the fake mainstream media suggesting that the Indians were racist because they shot these people. Um, it's amazing how things get distorted, isn't it?
yeah, it does. But living in South Africa, I mean, if you have a look at the old Pagat, I don't know if you've heard of them before. People against or gangsters and I'm not sure, gangs and drugs or something down in the Western Cape. It's a Muslim-based grouping that's also doing the same now. They defending their communities, but mostly the Indian communities in South Africa, the Muslim communities down in the Western Cape, according to me, they are, I won't say closed off communities, but they stay in a geographical area close to each other.
Yeah,
And by nature, my experience is by nature these communities, whether it be the Indian communities or Muslim communities or whatever, they are by nature very close to each other. They've often got two or more families living in the same house,
yeah,
um, and they are active in their communities, which is not the same under your typical white communities. Yeah, you might live in a neighborhood where you've got all white neighbors, but when's the last time any of them even spoke to each other?
That's a
Maybe
really
see him.
important point because
Yeah.
there does seem to be this disconnect between neighbours. I mean, I look,
Mm.
I'm just as bad as everybody else because I live in a house in Brisbane. I know one of my neighbours just by saying hello. His name is Paul. Um, I know the guy on the other side here because he's the landlord of the property I stay in. He's hardly ever here. But that's it. I don't know anybody else in this neighborhood. And I think that a lot of people watching could say the same thing. But we don't have 70 murders a day in Australia. If there's a murder in Brisbane, it's like headline news all over the place. And it does
Yeah.
happen. Yes, people do get murdered here, but not very often. But in South Africa, um, if I was living in South Africa, I'd be making damn sure that I introduced myself to all the neighbours, found out if there was a neighbourhood watching the area. It only takes a couple of hours to do that, just go knocking on doors and saying hello. Um, and then you at least have that support base. Well, what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, in a perfect world, I'd agree with that. I mean, I was involved, or I've been involved wherever there was a neighborhood watch. I was involved. I went out at night. Everybody got a 2 hour shift, and I did my 2 hour patrol. Um, but then it came to a point where it was the same 3 or 4 guys night after night that were doing the patrols, and the rest of the people were sleeping tightly, snugly in their homes, knowing that the neighborhood patrol was patrolling. But that was that. They wouldn't even support the guys who did the patrolling financially in terms of fuel for their vehicles. I mean, it's their private vehicles they are using. If I go out as a private citizen and gets injured or shot while doing a neighborhood watch patrol, my insurance company, for instance, won't pay out because that's not my job. Stuff like that.
Yeah,
And people don't realize the risk that these guys take. We're not law enforcement. Most of the time, the communities or these neighborhood watches try and form part of the CPF, the community policing forums. Then at least they do operations with the police in most cases. But a lot of the time, they're not even members of the community policing forum, or the community policing forum does not exist
yeah.
in their area. So again, if they now catch a perpetrator or somebody trying to break into a house or steal something out of a car, whatever, they can be charged for kidnapping if they arrest this person, um, or assault or whatever. So
Hang
there's
on.
a huge risk
If
for these people.
if they conduct a citizen arrest, if someone is obviously up to no good, they can be had up for kidnapping.
Well, even the policeman, if he arrests somebody unlawfully, um, without taking the proper or doing using the proper procedures, worst case scenario, I'm maybe exaggerating a little bit now, but they can, yes, be um, charged for wrongful arrest or wrongful incarceration. I don't know what is the proper word for that, or even kidnapping if that is
Wow.
that charge can be
It, it,
proven now.
it seems all the
So
dice are aimed to support the criminal.
yeah, I do. And if you look at the gun laws in South Africa, and all over the world now, there's a huge movement for anti-gun,
Yeah.
no guns. It's not the guns that kill, it's the people that kill. So it's the person behind the trigger that does the killing. And most of the time, criminals that uses firearms to commit murder, they don't use legal firearms. I mean, if you look at the gangs and stuff like that, they don't use legal firearms. Um, if it was started out as a legal firearm, it was probably stolen during a farm robbery or a house robbery, or a policeman that was overpowered, or cash and transit heist where they took the weapons from the security guards, and then those weapons become illegal firearms and they get used in crimes.
Yeah.
It's not the legal firearm owners that that commit these crimes. Yes, you do get the odd. Um, I mean, we're living in a crazy world. You do get the odd person that uses his private firearm to wipe out his whole family, or shoot his wife, or in a fit of rage kills a fellow road user or whatever. That does happen. But I mean, if you look, that's 70 murders a day in South Africa. If it's 1% that is actually somebody abusing his personal firearm or his legal firearm, it's one murder a day then versus against the 69 others that are committed with illegal firearms, if you want to put it in that
Yeah,
ratio.
yeah, because it's completely out of control in South Africa. Now,
Yeah.
let's talk about early warning systems because from what I'm hearing from what you're saying is that when you realize that your home is being invaded, it's critically important that you have a strategy in place to try and make time or somehow allow time to pass so that if you have got some kind of a security system or you've got a neighborhood watch group you can contact, that you can just get your family safe somewhere for a few minutes while that neighborhood watch group come and basically deal with the people who are trying to break into your house. So let's talk through how do you actually put that time lapse in between them getting to you face to face. What are the strategies to create that time?
If I may, I'm going to try and kill two birds with one stone here. Um, whether it's a rural, let's call it a farm, isolated, maybe kilometers away from the
Hmm.
next neighbor, or whether it's in an urban environment where you've got 20 meters from your house to the neighbor's house. Um, the principles remains the same. You need to in an urban environment, yeah, you've got your boundary wall or fence or whatever. That is the boundary of your security zone, if you want to call it that. And you want to basically know when somebody crosses that line. Um, the same with the farm. You've got to determine where is your let's call it your personal space. So people often refer to their personal space. Where is it comfortable for you and manageable for you to start putting up your early warning system, whether it be a fence with an electric fence on it or coupled to an alarm, because it's no use you've got an electric fence but it's not coupled to an alarm. Um, when the electric fence is useless, it will maybe deter a guy from quickly jumping over to steal a bicycle. But if people are coming there to come and do some serious damage, then the electric fence is not going to stop them. They're going to cut that fence, and especially if they know it's not linked to an alarm, it's easy to breach an electric fence. So yeah, you've got to push out that early warning system of yours as far as possible to give you time to react, to give you time to gather your family and put your emergency procedures in place, or to activate your emergency procedures, to make alarm to your neighbors, to the neighborhood watch, to the police, to the farm watch, whatever is applicable in that situation. So yeah, you must start with your outer perimeter and secure that, or at least rig that in such a way that it gives you an alarm, an indication. Listen, your security space has now been breached. You must go into your reaction plans or whatever it is, or make alarm and call for help and get your family safe.
Right. Now,
No.
I know a lot of people in South Africa have a particular room which doesn't have windows, which is like in a bricked house. It's sort of like it might be underneath a staircase or something like that, where they can actually escape to and basically have a metal grill and then the timber door behind it or a reinforced door behind it. So if there is an invasion taking place, they can basically put themselves in that secure room where they can't be shot through a window or anything like that. What are your thoughts about having that as a time creator?
Yes, yeah, we've all seen it on the movies and stuff where I think they call it a safe room,
Yeah,
where you can basically cordon yourself and your family off for an amount of time. Let whoever's inside your house break and take whatever they want to break and take. At least you'll get out alive.
yeah,
Or you win time sitting in a safe space where you win time for either the police or the security company or whoever to react. I must say I haven't come across anybody yeah, I haven't come across anybody that's got a safe room in their home in South Africa. So it's actually news to me, but it's not to say that they don't have it. I mean, I've thought about that, building something like that in my own house, because obviously these things go through your mind. So, but the ideal is to have like a safe room where you can retreat to, and at least you keep your family safe and yourself safe um, while waiting for help.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I have not met anybody that actually has a physical safe room in their homes, although it's a very good idea.
Right. Okay.
Um,
Now,
but yeah, for that same matter, you can have a reinforced room in your house, although it might not be a windowless safe room with a steel door or what have you. But you've got to create that inside your house. A lot of people, what they do is they have a secondary safety gate in the passage leading from the living area to the sleeping quarters of the home, just to provide an additional barrier and to provide additional time for themselves to get themselves safe or to wait for help to arrive, etc.
right.
So yeah, that
Um,
is obviously
Now, one of the best things you can have if you've got a if you if you live in South Africa, one of the best things you can have is at least a small dog, and because a small dog has an incredible sense of smell, and these thieves, these gangs often smell like God knows what. But I mean, the dog will pick up the intruder before you even know they're there, won't they?
yes, they will. But yeah, like obviously, yeah, it doesn't. I haven't got a small dog. I particularly don't like small dogs, but some other people do. And yes, my neighbors that used to live next to me, they had about 4 or 5 of these little Dashuns and
Yeah,
Jack Russells or whatever. They're lively animals, and I've seldom had to use the doorbell because the dogs will let them know there's somebody
mm,
at the gate. Or yeah, so yes, they do have value, but just to make an alarm. Uh, and also, if your dogs sleep outside, obviously they become, or they are at risk of being poisoned or neutralized in some other way. So, my opinion, the best dog is a dog that's inside the house,
right.
um, that can make alarm. And then you must know. I mean, I know my dogs. When they start barking, I go and have a look. I don't tell them to shut up because and 99% of the time they've got a reason to bark, especially if it's at night.
Now, just on that
I've, I've,
point, um,
no.
I've heard of so many people who've been alerted by the dogs that there's something happening outside, and stupidly, they've opened their front door to go and look. I mean, isn't that the craziest thing you can do? Isn't it a better idea to have like predefined little spots that maybe you have a little hole in the curtain? You can go out and just have a look through that hole just to see what's happening.
The worst thing you can do is to go outside of your safe space because now you compromise the security of your house. You compromise the safety of your
Yeah,
family. You go out, you want to be the hero now. You've maybe got your pistol in your hand and a flashlight in the other, and you've got your flip flops on. Um, but you're a target. You don't know how many people are outside. You don't know what's waiting for you outside.
yeah.
And now you leave your family defenseless inside the house. So no, um, and I think that topic has been discussed many times, and that's also one of the standing points whenever they do safety briefings is don't go and investigate.
Yeah.
And I've heard stories about these guys get uh, really what do you call it, creative. Most of South African houses have got a main electrical box outside their house. So if they do gain access to
Yes.
your property or your yard, sometimes they go to that box and they switch off the electricity.
Yeah. So you go and have a look to see what's happening, and
So
bang, you're in
yeah, so
trouble.
now the electricity is off. You go out to go and have a look, and yeah, that's the moment that they hit you.
Yeah. Now look.
So yeah,
The,
dogs are good if they are inside the house to make an alarm. And yeah, trust your dogs. Know what your dogs bark
yeah.
for and what they don't. And if you live long enough with the same dogs, you will also learn to distinguish this is now just a nuisance bark or this is now there's something out there bark. So you must know, yeah, teach yourself to distinguish between your dog's types of barks and the noises and the sounds that it makes.
Yeah.
That they make, yeah.
Now look. One of the things that I really understand about the Africans is that they are highly well, they believe in witchcraft, and they believe that they can really get themselves in trouble if they upset the spirits. And I understand that. Well, when I was a young boy growing up in East Africa, I used to walk around the African markets in Iringa on a very busy day with a little chameleon on my shoulder. And that chameleon was like evil. It was like, with the Africans, they would see the chameleon and they would literally run. And I was about 5 years old, and I'd walk through this market, and it was like partying the waters. They would see the chameleon, they'd go, how? They would run out the way. Are there any things as far as symbols or stuff like that, especially if you're on a farm, that you can put prominently, like outside your front door, maybe the skull of a chimpanzee or something like that, that they will see as taboo? And, they'll say, we're not going to go because this is, again, taking the witchcraft sort of side of things. What are your thoughts about having that as a form of defense?
I won't say no, it won't work. I think if you're like a snake collector or you've got snakes as pets and you've got signs around your house saying beware there's snakes inside, I know there's a huge fear regarding snakes. So
That's
just
a good
because of
idea.
the fear of the snakes, they won't really go in there. But normally these guys that go in there, they've done their homework, they've done their reconnaissance.
Yeah.
They have either spoken to the guy that cleans the garden or the cleaning lady of the house, or they've spoken to them, whether deliberately or overtly, or whether it's covertly, maybe asking for a glass of water during the day, and then, oh, so how's the guys that are living here, which seems innocent, but they fish for information.
Yeah.
Oh, I see there's snakes in the house, and then the garden cleaner will say, no, man, it's just a sign that's in here. He hasn't seen any snakes here or whatever. But the opposite, just to come back to when you talk about witchcraft and stuff like that, often when these guys do get arrested, even the cash in transit heists and the guys that do the armed robberies of businesses, etc., when they get debriefed, it comes out that they strongly believe in uh, the witchcraft, the sangomas.
Yeah.
They go and consult their sangomas before they go.
Mm.
And they wait for the sangomas to give them the go ahead, and they even get potions and mutis or whatever to make them invincible, to make them bulletproof, or to make them invisible, even um, as far as they believe, or to make them brave, or so often they will go to the sangomas or the witch doctors to give them that sort of boost and support, which makes them, I don't want to say, which boosts their morale and their confidence when they go out and they conduct these crimes, because the forefathers have blessed it, and it came from the Sangoma, and the Sangoma has given them this potion, so they are covered in terms of that. Sometimes there are even drugs involved. They maybe smoke some marijuana just to boost their own confidence before they go out and commit these crimes. So yeah, the opposite end. I don't think really in South Africa, unless they look, it's common fact. Most white people in South Africa don't believe in witchcraft, the Muti or the Sangomas. So yeah, they don't see that as a threat to them. I know
Now,
there's lots of what do you call it, superstitions in the
yeah.
African nations regarding owls, for example, or who they considered harbingers of death, and snakes, obviously. But yeah, I don't think that is much of a deterrent in South Africa to use that type of, like you said, put a skull on the post or something like that. It might work here and there, but I don't think as a rule it will work.
Yeah. Well, snakes to me sounds like a good idea. Have a little pet snake in your house, and yeah, just now this is where we get to. I think the weak link with most families in South Africa who do have a home invasion or a farm attack, and that is the domestic servant, or the, as you say, the garden boy. That person who you think you can trust, who you pay to do something in the house or outside the house, they can be gathering information about your house, and then, as you say, they go back to the township. Maybe under duress, they give someone who wants to invade your house a whole lot of information, or maybe they're party to the invasion. But what I've heard is that 90% of home invasions, whether they be on a farm or in a suburb, are as a result of inside information from someone like a domestic servant who's working from you. What are your
Yes,
comments about that?
yes, and I want to say I believe your statistics are spot on. In some cases, you will get a disgruntled former employee that will initiate this. He'll go to a gang and say, "Listen, I've got this information. I know the boss brings home cash on Fridays because on Saturdays he pays this or that." And he starts sharing information because he's disgruntled. But a lot of the times, it's either intimidation or bribery of farm workers who stay on the farm, whose families maybe live in the townships, or like you said, domestic workers, gardeners, etc., that has access to your house, that knows the ins and outs of your house, that knows your routines, etc., that on the train or the bus or the taxi ride home, they get confronted, or at a tavern on a Friday night, they get bought drinks and whatever, and like they say, the old saying goes, "Loose lips sink ships." Um, and they divulge information, and sometimes it's straight out bribe. Listen, we know that we're going to get 50,000 here. We're going to give you 5,000 rand in cash. It doesn't have to be absurd amounts, because for most domestic workers in South Africa, 5,000 rand is a month's wages.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
Now, okay, we've talked about basically a whole lot of stuff. We haven't actually talked about how can people reduce their risks of a home invasion, or
yes,
for example, if they're out in the car and a carjacking. What are the steps they need to take?
I think like I started off on. I said, take your head out of the sand. Get your head out of the sand. Realize that there is a risk. You are always at risk, and you start developing that routine. That in the defence force, when I was presenting training, the definition of training was to impart knowledge, firstly, secondly, skills, and thirdly, the correct attitude. So you need to train yourself. You need to give yourself some knowledge. Get yourself knowledge, or go to somebody that can impart that knowledge onto you. You've got to learn some skills, because what's going to happen when you do get into a situation, whether it be a hijacking, whether it be a home invasion, whether it's an armed robbery in a mall or wherever, and you're caught up. What skills can you provide yourself to defend yourself with, to make sure that you survive, to make sure that your family or your children or whatever survives? And then lastly is the attitude. And that's the most difficult part to impart. You have to have you have to be wake up. You have to be aware of your surroundings. When you come out of the shopping mall and you got the little child in a trolley, and your handbag is in the trolley, and you're tired and irritated because the child wanted everything in the shop that he couldn't get or she couldn't get, and they're tired and you're tired, and they park the trolley next to the car, they open up the boot of the car, and they start packing in all these groceries that they've just bought, instead of securing the most important things first. Your handbag. I mean, while you bent over into the boot of your car, to the back of your SUV or whatever, loading in groceries, somebody can come along and grab your handbag.
Yeah.
It's as
Or
simple
your
as
kids.
that. Or your kids. So those are the most important things that you need to store inside the vehicle safely before you start unpacking your groceries. Um,
Now,
I mean, I've sat in parking lots now for a couple of, yeah, that I see this mom going through exactly what I just described,
yeah.
and then I would just sit there in my car or stand there next to my car, and just watch her until she's finally driven off. Some people might think I'm a pervert. I'm
You
stalker or
just
something,
keeping an eye
but
on her, making sure she's
just
okay.
keeping an eye, because
Yeah.
she's blissfully unaware of what can happen.
Yeah.
She just walked past two guys sitting on the sidewalk or smoking a cigarette. They looked innocent,
Yeah.
but me, they follow her with their eyes, and I come from behind and I can see what they are aiming at or whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, create awareness for yourself regarding your surroundings. Um, Prioritize your belongings, if you want to put it like that. What am I going to, when I get to the car now, what am I going to unload first? Get the child into the baby seat, uh, lock her in with the safety belt or whatever, get my purse and whatever safely out of sight, not on the front seat, not at the footwell of the passenger side, out of sight.
Mm.
Because that's what mostly when they've got these smash and grab incidents, is he'll drive past somebody that's standing there next to the road, and he'll signal somebody up the road to say, here's a car with a handbag on the passenger seat, and then at the next stop sign or next traffic light, bang, your window gets smashed and your
And the
bag
bag is
gets
gone.
grabbed
Yeah.
and it's gone. Yeah, and I mean that's common for some people. It's common sense and it's common knowledge, but still you get these people that do that. I mean, sometimes my own
Yeah.
wife does it. So yeah, you must start creating awareness of your surroundings for yourself. You must get switched on. I mean, I attended some training years ago where the instructor told you we attended the police's SWAT, Special Weapons and Tactics course, um, and the instructor drilled it into you. Um, you always go through this little observation, orientation, decision, action. We call it the OODA cycle in your mind of what's happening around me. If this happens, what next? How am I going to react? Where am I going to go? That becomes part of your daily thinking,
Yeah.
um, subconsciously. But the normal guy on the street doesn't do that. Some people
Yeah.
do it, depending on their background. They don't even know that they're doing it, but some people do it. But it's deliberate. You start forcing yourself to go through that cycle. I mean, I still find myself getting anxious if somebody walks towards me and I can't see their hands. Um, Because where are their hands? What threats in their hands? Because
Mm.
that was what we were trained when we did SWAT training, for example. If
Yeah.
you need to see people's hands, because that's where the threat is going to come from. Whether it's a fist, a knife, a bat, a brick, a gun. But if you can see their hands, then at least you know there's no weapon coming towards you, etc.
Mm.
So I've learned these skills and it's never left me. Once it's part of you, you go through it. Sit in the mall, or up until today, if we go into a restaurant or wherever, I'll sit facing the door. I don't want to sit with my back towards the door because then I can't see what's happening.
Yeah.
So I'll go and sit somewhere where I can observe what's happening um, in a restaurant. Or what's happening? Where's the front door? I want to see at all times. I want to see the front door. I don't like people sitting behind me because then I can't see what's happening behind me. So stuff like that. But yeah, some people call it paranoid. That's just the way I was taught, trained, and it's never left me. I've still got those instincts, and it's still there. But I don't think you need to have been in the military or the police or whatever to train yourself to do that. The moment you start um, creating awareness about your surroundings, those are things that you're going to sort out or figure out for yourself, um, and you're going to start looking at that.
Yeah.
Maybe you just need somebody to mention it, like I'm doing now, and you're going to realize, hey, this guy is not talking nonsense. Um, I always do that. I go and I sit, bang, back to the door. I can't see what's happening behind me. Um, this guy's talking sense. So from now on, he's going to change his behavior. From now on, he's heard what Billy said or what somebody else said, and he's going to change his behavior. And immediately, it makes him more alert, it makes him more observant, and he starts getting aware of what's happening in his surroundings.
Now,
And then yeah.
just talking about this stuff. What about training your family? Obviously, that's very important that you act as a very like a well-oiled machine. If there is an invasion, the family know what their task is to do. Um, how important is that the family knows how to respond to an invasion?
I think it's vital. Um, Most of the times, if I'm just taking now the South African households, normally the houses are built with the main bedroom way at the back of the house, and then the little kids' rooms are more to the front. And normally, where the guys come in is through the kitchen or the living room or wherever. So the first people at risk, you're sleeping way back in the master bedroom at the back of the house, but your kids are at risk first. So you need to teach them the moment they hear something, what must they do? Run to your room, lock the door, make an alarm. So you've got to develop a plan based on the layout of your own home, based on your own abilities, capabilities. You've got to develop a plan, and your family needs to know. If I wake you up at 2 o'clock in the morning, before you even wipe the sleep from your eyes, or you take a yawn, or you scratch whatever needs to be scratched, you jump up, you run to mom's room, and you lock the door. As simple as that. But you need to train your family, and it's important because remember we talked about early warning. There's no use having an early warning system that alerts you that there's intruders in your property.
Right.
And you need to keep your family safe for the next 15 minutes for somebody to come to your assistance. But now, 7 of that 15 minutes is taken just to wake everybody up or to convince everybody we're going to go there now. But isn't it safer in this room, Dad? Or Mom always needs to overrule Dad. So yeah, to avoid that and to avoid confusion, and to speed up the time from that you get the alarm until you have a family in a safe area where you can keep them safe until help arrives. That's important. So I think it's vital that you do train your family. You don't necessarily, if you can train them in the use of a firearm and self-defense techniques, and yeah, great, because now you've just enhanced or improved their survival rate,
Right.
because now they can defend themselves.
Now, when
But
I
most of the
was
time, if you read all these stories,
yeah
a lot of these people wake up and the guys were already standing at the foot of their bed.
yeah No, but when I was a young kid, I went to boarding school at Cornwallis in Pietermaritzburg, and we used to have regular fire drills. And the reason they did that was so that we just knew exactly what to do when there was a fire. And we all had to run to the quad. And, it was quite fun. It was like, it was just, we never thought that maybe one day there would be a fire. But if there was, as a result of the fire drill, we knew exactly what we had to do. Now, do you think that as part of the training, they should actually have a drill where one of the kids, for example, might pretend to be the invader, and then the family has to respond to that in the form of a drill, rather than just talking about it, so that you can see that they fully understand what steps they have to take?
Yes, I mean, I think back to when I was at primary school. Well, all the schools that I attended to, even in the army, you had these regular emergency drills, whether it be a fire drill or a bomb threat or a plane crash or what have you. But you had these immediate action drills. That the moment the alarm gets sounded, you know what one long beep is a fire. Intermittent beeps is a bomb threat or whatever, and the drills for each of them are different.
Right.
So yeah, you can develop your own system in your house. You can make it playful if you've got young kids. You don't necessarily want to put the fear into them that we're going to get they're going to lie awake at night, never sleep, because every little sound is somebody coming wanting to break into their house to come and kill them. So you don't want to create that mindset with your children. So you can maybe incorporate some fun issues like they do at school. There goes the alarm. The electric fence alarm just went off. So come on, let's go through our drills, and we meet there. And and it becomes, the more you do it, the more it becomes routine, and the faster and the more effective the reaction to the alarm becomes.
Right.
So then you've won.
Yeah.
Like I said, if you can add on top of that some
It's all about
skills,
the time element, because when you've got house invaders, time is of the most critical part of the whole response. Now, okay, I'm going to be wrapping up this live stream shortly, and I want to say thank you so much, Billy, for sharing your expertise with us. But there's a comment in here that you put in the talking points, which I really think is really interesting, and I'd like you to talk about this. You say, when weak, act strong. When strong, act weak. Please explain.
Okay. I'm going to focus on the first one. Okay, let me start off with the last part of that quote. When strong, act weak. You've got the capability. You're capable of violence, for example.
Mm-hmm.
You're a mixed martial arts champion or something like that.
Or you've got a loaded revolver.
But you're not gonna walk around with that firearm on your hip, displaying it to everybody.
Yeah.
You wanna tuck it away somewhere where it's not visible, because you don't want to identify yourself as, say for example, you walk into a jewelry store to buy a wife an anniversary gift.
Right.
And you get overpowered, and you're probably the only guy in there that is armed. Now you've displayed this firearm, or the ability that you have to, or they perceive you as a possible threat. They're going to neutralize you first. So you need to present as small as a target as possible, meaning that don't present yourself as a possible threat in that situation. Because if you present yourself as a possible threat to these criminals, they're going to try and neutralize you first. If you follow what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Rather conceal your weapon or your firearm or whatever. Put it in a position where if you just bow down or whatever, turn your back, face a wall or something, where you can then have access to your firearm, and from there you can react. Make as if you're not a threat. But the opposite is also true, because these people won't go and attack a target where they know there's a threat. They know this guy is armed. They know this guy is alert. They know he's got dogs. They know he's got alarms and electric fences and beams around his house, and the armed reaction is just around the corner. So they're going to bypass his house. They're going to go to the soft targets where there's maybe older people. They're going to go to the soft targets where there's maybe just a mom and kids staying there. Or they know this guy is not, he's not very healthy, maybe very fit. He doesn't even own a firearm according to the information that they've received. So they're going to go for the soft target. So if you know you are a soft target, you need to portray the fact that you might be, when weak, act strong. So yeah, even though you don't have the skills to follow it up, but at least when you approach your house, look as if you're alert. Don't use the same routes if it's possible at all. Don't go into a routine, because those are the things that they can't plan on. These guys come planned. They've pre-planned this attack or this invasion. So the moment that something changes that's not supposed to take place, they put off guard.
Right.
So yeah, that's how you portray yourself as strong. You portray yourself as aware of your situation. You portray yourself as paraat. I'm not sure what the English word for that is. As sorry, the word is. Yeah, you're aware. You're vigilant. You're awake. Doors are locked. Your gates are locked. You don't leave stuff open.
Right.
So even if you are weak, if you portray those routines and traits that I've just explained, you will make yourself less of a target. If there's, they often, it's not the guys that do the reconnaissance that eventually come and do the robberies or the home invasions. Sometimes they've got guys that's, there's this thing in South Africa now where you put your rubbish bag on the sidewalk for the garbage truck to come and collect it, but you've got these guys that follow these trucks or go ahead of these trucks to try and get the tins and what have you that's still recyclable or usable from the garbage bags. But we've become so accustomed to these guys being there, in my case, for example, on Monday morning, that you don't give them a second thought. But these are the guys that do the reconnaissance. And they take this information back and they say, hey, there wasn't a garbage bag in front of this house this morning. I think there's nobody there. Normally there's two cars in the drive, but there's nothing there now. Or I asked the cleaning lady for a glass of water. Yeah, or the domestic lady or whatever, for a glass of water or a slice of bread or whatever. And, and then they know, okay, here's a soft target.
Yeah.
They've got gangs that come in and just come and do the hit and whatever, because they don't want to be seen in the area of the target, because that makes it possible that they can be identified.
Right.
Either from CCTV footage earlier on or something like that. So they'll come in, they'll do the hit, they'll go out, sometimes not even from the same town. So it's difficult to prepare for all the eventualities.
Yeah.
All you can do is to be vigilant, to enhance your survival, your chances of survival by doing anything possible to not portray yourself as a target and not make yourself a soft target. And then obviously, like we said, early warning.
Right.
Create as much time from them entering your premises, get an alarm, have a system going where you can activate an emergency plan, and then so it all goes about increasing your survival rate.
Yeah, and I guess, as you say, the key thing is it's all about attitude. Understand that there are threats. Don't sleep with the blinkers on, because you won't all wake up. All right. Now, Billy, I want to say thank you so much for joining us tonight, and Is there anything you would like to just say in wrapping up this live stream?
Oh, I probably had a lot of things going through my mind, but nothing I can think of at the moment. Oh.
Right.
No, thank you for the opportunity. Like I said, you refer to me as an expert. I don't know if I'm that, but yeah, somebody liked what I said, and I was referred, and yeah, and as a result, we had this conversation.
Yeah.
And yeah, there might be people out there that don't 100% agree with me, or people that consider themselves a bigger expert than I am. And by all means, maybe they can add more value or more tips and advice.
Yeah.
We only been busy for about an hour now, so I don't think we could have covered all the angles and given all the tips. But yeah, if one person hears what I'm saying tonight and changes their lifestyle and changes their attitude towards this whole thing, and as a result of that somebody's life gets spared, then it was worthwhile.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Billy. Have a great evening.
You too, Scott.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Yep. Absolute pleasure. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
All right, guys, that was Billy Kraft, and he's had a lot of military experience and has some common sense thoughts there that I hope that you picked up on. And don't forget, tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Johannesburg time, we're going to have a very, very interesting discussion about conspiracy theories, including 9/11 and others as well. And we're going to have some pretty exclusive video clips that are going to blow you out the water. So tomorrow night, if you join us at 8 p.m., make sure you're sitting down. Make sure you've got a stiff drink in your hand and just enjoy and understand how we are being completely lied to by the fake mainstream media. It's quite an extraordinary discussion. All right, guys, tonight I'm going to go out with Hier Bly Ek Boer. Have a great evening, everybody. If I don't see you through the week, you know what? I'll see you through the window. Cheers. Take care, guys. Bye for now.
Meer as 61,000 van ons voorvaders het op die grens vir ons gesterwe, sodat ons vry kan wees. Die is my land, die is my reg, hier is ek boer. Van stof is ek gemaak en sal ek terugkeer. Die Bybel is die woord waaruit ek leer, soos die grond op die aarde. Hier bly ek boer. Soos diep in die nag sal die vyand kom, maar hier bly ek staan en ek draai nie om, want jy maak my nie bang nie. Hier bly ek boer. Die is my land waarvoor ek sal veg. Die is my bloed, my sweet, my reg. Die is die plek waar my voorvaders leef. Die is my land, hoor wat ek jou sê. Die is my land, wat my mense voer. Hier bly ek boer. Soos 'n bladam in die somer wat vreugde bring. My oupa wat maniekie roek kon sing, soos hy stap deur die lande. Hier was hy boer. My wortels lê diep in die grond geplant. My seun soos my pa los ek vir jou die land, en jy hoef nie te vrees nie. Hier sal jy boer. Die is my land waarvoor ek sal veg. Die is my bloed, my sweet, my reg. Die is die plek waar my voorvaders leef. Die is my land, hoor wat ek jou sê. zal komen.